everyone, we're back.
Hey y'all.
If you're new, this is the At the Table podcast. I'm Shay,
I'm Luis.
and we are back for another episode on our mini series.
Yeah.
All right, what are we talking about today?
How was your day?
Kind of boring, if I'm being honest. For anyone who's listening and doesn't know, I work from home.
I guess that's fair.
So there's really not much I do. I will say my parents just got back from a month-long Europe trip, so they're trying to kind of get settled back in. That's pretty much all that's going on.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have the next 2 weeks off from everything.
Work too?
No, obviously not, but everything outside of work.
What do you mean?
Like
groups?
Youth is going on break for fall break for 2 weeks, so no youth for the next 2 weeks, and then if they do men's group.
Such a child.
If they do men's group on Mondays, both Mondays, I don't think I'm gonna go. Just to have a break, and then obviously this is our last episode of the season, so we won't be recording for a little while.
Yeah.
Or a couple weeks, month. I don't know how long we're doing this.
Probably a month.
Yeah, sounds good.
Close to it.
I feel like that's a lot.
It is.
I don't mind it. I'm gonna avidly be posting on Instagram and stuff.
Yeah,
anyway,
we'll still be active on the Instagram and having like Q&A polls for what we should talk about next season, and
yeah,
we'll still have the Instagram active, but
we
need a break.
yeah, honestly, yeah.
We're kind of running on empty right now.
Yeah. I was literally talking about. I texted Jade last night because I got out of. We got out of youth at like 10 p.m. And
yeah, you guys got out late.
Yeah, and so I texted her because I knew she was awake. Shout out Jade. True. And I texted Jade, and because that new emoji came out, the one that I sent you earlier, with the tired face, and I texted her and I said, "Dude, why is this emoji literally me?" And she goes, "Dude, why?" And now and then I told her like how busy I was and this and that. And she goes, "Honestly, what do you feel like you need right now?" And I said, "Papa needs a vacation." I literally word for word, I said, "Papa needs a vacation," because I do. Yeah. And I'm kind of torn between like, I know like summer's over. Summer's
but
over,
low-key, yeah.
Well, not here, but.
Well, yeah. Summer weather is never over in Arizona.
Yeah, no, exactly, no.
No, but summer ended a while ago.
Oh, I didn't even know.
But personally, in my opinion, fall is the best time to travel.
Yeah.
Because summer is so busy
right.
for people traveling,
right.
and then also fall has the best weather.
Yeah, I guess what's hard for me is like I'm kind of torn between like, kind of like what I was saying. I don't remember how many episodes ago, but like I'm kind of wanting to like go to the Grand Tetons and then just horseback riding the entire trip. Yeah. Or I kind of also want to go like somewhere on the coast.
I was thinking about Maine.
Well, yeah, I mean,
it's so pretty right now.
Maine is so expensive to go to though, unless, well, I mean, either way, like you could fly into, because I mean, I don't know if you knew, but in Portland, there's only one airport, and it's the tiniest airport literally ever. I think they only get one flight from Phoenix a week.
That's crazy.
That's how tiny it is.
That's so funny.
And they only have like 5 terminals.
Yeah.
So usually what people do is they'll fly into Boston and then you drive up, or you can take the train up. And
I would definitely do the train.
Well, when we went, the last time I went was a few years ago for my sister's wedding. That's where my sister got married. And we flew in straight into Portland. Mm-hmm. So we didn't have to worry about like going to Boston and taking a trip up. I mean, it's not even that far, but it's expensive. It is like one of the most expensive flights. Like I didn't buy it. My parents bought it for me, but like I think we spent like close to $3,000 for the 4 of us.
Yeah, the coast is just always expensive.
Well, I mean, I was begging you guys for a Maine trip for the entire summer. I I just didn't have the money for it.
Right. Well, first of all, you weren't really begging for it. You just kind of brought it up a couple times.
I brought it up so many times.
You only brought it up to me like once or twice.
Well, yeah, because everybody said no. Everybody basically said no.
Yeah.
And so fair. I was like, well, I'm not going to talk about it anymore.
We'll plan a trip for next year for sure.
Just kidding.
I'm laying it out there right now.
I just don't know where I want to go.
We can figure it out.
No, I mean like me right now.
Oh.
Because I kind of want to do a solo trip.
I almost said Portland again. Poland.
I mean, ideally I would love to, but no, I can't, like, because I don't have vacation time at work. So it's like, I can't go anywhere for a long period of time. You should have it
built up by then, right?
No, so once you get, well, I guess kind of. I mean, but once you hit your first year, you get a week. Like a week of paid time off. I don't have PTO to go somewhere for. Interesting. That makes sense. So I want to wait that year out so I could, like, maybe go visit my friends in England for a week, and just spend some time in Norwich. Or I don't know where else I would go. Maybe go house hunting in South Carolina or land hunting. Just start planning everything out now, I guess.
Yeah.
And then I could hit I could hit the beach. I could rent a car or something.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know what I want. I don't know what I want at all.
I just want to say sorry to everybody listening. I feel like you can tell we're kind of soft-spoken. Yeah, no. We're kind of beat. Yeah, for anybody who's listening, how else would you know, dude? For everyone who is listening, I go into work at 7, and I got out at 6. So long day. 6, 7. Okay. Okay, can you cut that out, please, for this? No, I'm keeping that in. No, for the sake of my reputation. I'm keeping it in. Take it out. You always beg me to keep stuff in, so I'm keeping it in. All right, whatever. I don't even care anymore. Okay. Yeah. Moral of the story, we're both very tired. But yeah, we're not too tired to go back into the conversation or to finish the conversation of episode 2. Yeah. If you listen to episode 2, which if you didn't, please go back and listen to that one. Well, episode 2 of the mini series. Correct. So, which would be episode 8. 8. Episode 8. Yes, episode 8. I want to say. It is. Yes, yeah. You're correct. Yeah, I mean, if you haven't listened to episode 1 or 2 of the mini series, definitely go back and give it a listen before today. Mm-hmm. Because we're going to touch on a lot of stuff that we already spoke about. Right. And then especially for episode 2, there was some stuff that we didn't get to that we wanted to touch on today. Why are you laughing? Because no one's listened to the episode yet. Yeah, Claire listened to it. She texted me. Hi, Claire. If you're listening, we love you. It says 0 plays, 0 comments. Oh, but this is just for Spotify. So that's why. Yeah. I'll show it to you after, but she texted me about it. Yeah, I spoke to her last night. She was on the panel. We had a Q&A panel for youth last night. Yeah. Yeah. Her and I talked for a very long time. Good. Yeah. I love Claire. I love you, Claire, if you're listening. You're the best. She always is. Loyal listener. Yeah. But yeah, let's go ahead and dive in. Mm-hmm. Some of the topics that we weren't able to get to last episode, I wanted to specifically touch more on friendships again and like chosen family. Chosen family specifically in the sense of like biblical friendships, and then also tying that into actual family and how you can be respectful. I feel like there are a lot of young adults listening, me and Luis included, who still live with our parents. So kind of balancing how to be a young adult and have that independence while still being respectful. And honoring your parents as we're commanded to do. And then also with family, talking about the generational gaps between faith and culture. Yeah. And, you know, families, like everybody's in a different generation, how they were raised. Yeah. What society looked like around them, whatever. So, yeah. Like my brain is just so empty right now. Yeah, I'm sorry. Like
I'm like speaking, but I'm not speaking out loud. If that makes any sense. Like I'm talking, but in
He's
my
just
head.
talking to himself in his
Yeah.
head.
In my head.
But yeah, let's keep going on friendship. I kind of want to start there.
Yeah.
Do you have an idea?
Not really.
Okay, I'll start.
Not a lot going on up here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think in the sense of, and Luis kind of touched on this in episode 2 of the miniseries as well, but how a lot of times people long to have friendships that you know will last. And that's kind of what I'm talking about when I say like chosen family. Are those friendships that you know, like no matter the distance, the time in your life, like those are the friends that you can always count on.
Right.
And it's funny in my head because I kind of equate it in a sense to dating. In this, hear me out.
Okay. I made a weird face.
Yeah, but in the sense of like a lot of those same qualities
are
going to be what you look for when it comes to like a chosen family.
No, absolutely.
Lifelong friend.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to like loyalty is a huge one that we touched on.
Right.
That also obviously applies to like those lifelong friends.
Right.
And I also just want to say, off my personal story, that growing up, and honestly until pretty recently, like maybe 3 years ago, I had a very rocky relationship with my parents. And for those listening who may be in the same boat, that's normal. And it's also okay because there's always time to fix it. And like I said, it took me until maybe 3 years ago until I was able to be really close with my parents again.
Yeah.
And again, for those listening who may be in the same boat, chosen family, and those lifelong friends are going to be really helpful.
Yeah.
Obviously, I would always recommend to try and repair your family relationships first. But, in my case, like that wasn't really an option.
I mean, yeah, realistically.
Just because like I wasn't living here with my parents.
Yeah.
And we weren't talking all the time. And I was just so removed from, I want to say like reality. Like,
yeah, no,
at that time in my life, for those who don't know my testimony, I was practicing witchcraft and I was very new age, into like tarot, crystals, all that kind of thing.
Just kidding. I already knew.
So that also made it really, really hard.
Yeah.
To like rebuild that connection with my parents. And it also made it really hard for me to find that like chosen family.
Right.
And those friends that would last, because obviously with like new age beliefs, there's no like firm foundation for those friendships to land on. So I just wanted to like kind of give an encouragement real quick before diving really into the family aspect, that it's okay to not have good relationships with your family. And there's also other family members to this day that I still really don't talk to.
Right.
Just for personal reasons I don't want to get into, but
yeah, you don't have to.
It's totally normal.
Yeah.
I know that saying is really popular of like blood is thicker than water. But it's just
I mean,
not true.
Kind of to piggyback off of you. I was, I want to say like a year out of high school, and I was in a very toxic relationship where she made me believe that like my parents were like the literal devil, and manipulated me in many ways. Mind you, I was very vulnerable, so like I kind of fell for it, and kind of ruined my relationship with my parents too. I wasn't really talking to them. I wasn't really talking to my sisters either, and we all lived in the same roof. And then we had a pretty big fight as a family. It wasn't just like about me, like it was kind of about like everybody was doing certain things that was bothering everybody except for my little sister. She was little. But like my dad, my mom, my older sister and I, like, were having a huge fight, and it got to a point where like my dad and I got into like a little, I wouldn't say like it was a, like, we didn't throw punches, but it was a kind of a physical altercation. We were pushing each other and stuff, and my dad left for a week, and you know, it was like pretty bad, and it sucked too because like we've always been like a really, really tight knit family, and you know, it kind of just stemmed from like my relationship with that girl, and it kind of spiraled the whole entire family. And then my dad came back, and you know, we sat down, we had a conversation, like a really, really long conversation, like maybe like 5-hour long conversation. Everybody was crying, and you know, we made it a goal to just from here on out, you know, was the moral of the story was like from here on out, like, we do something that bothers each other, we talk about it as a family. You know, we kind of get to the nitty gritty of everything and sit down and have conversation. And obviously, like, I grew older, my sister grew older, both of my sisters, obviously, like, we all grew older, and with that came maturity. My parents have, you know, always been really good parents as far as like raising us in the right way, very respectful kids. And you know, now it's like at the point where like, you know, my parents are more of my best friends rather than my parents. If anything, you know, like, that's kind of the relationship we have now. And it just like, you know, like, it's kind of like what you were saying, like, it's okay to not have the best relationships with certain people in your family. And I come from a Mexican background, so it's like,
what?
Yeah, it's a given.
I had to do it back. I'm sorry.
It's a given to like anybody who's Mexican who's listening to the podcast would probably relate. But there's always something going on in the family on either side, whether it's dad's side or mom's side. And like for us on my mom's side, when my grandma passed, my mom and her siblings, not all her siblings, her older brother and her sister were all on the same side, and her oldest brother was on the other side of this argument over land after my grandma passed. And it was this huge ordeal. And so I don't talk to them or their family. I don't follow them on social media, you know, or anything like that. And it's gotten to the point where I don't really consider them family anymore. You know, like when people, my cousin brought it up on Sunday at my little sister's birthday party, you know, and she like was talking about my mom's oldest brother, and I don't even call him my uncle anymore. You know, it's kind of like that it's gone that bad, you know, and like, cause they threw shade at me. They threw shade at my sister, my older sister, at my dad, and obviously at my mom. And it got bad to the point where like they threatened us. And so obviously I completely cut them off out of my life to the point where I don't consider them family anymore. Obviously I don't wish them anything bad to happen to them or anything like that. But it's kind of just piggybacking off of what you were saying. Like, it's not bad to cut certain people off, even if they are family, you know, specifically blood related. I don't think it's a bad thing either.
Yeah. It reminds me too of just like the idea that being born into a relationship with someone doesn't give them any more access to you than anybody else.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is like you don't owe these people anything.
Right. I hope a lot of I hope a lot of Mexican families are listening to that, because we could relate to that so much.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't born into a Mexican household, obviously, but clearly, I mean, it's still very relatable. That's going to be our tick for the episode. Yeah. But yeah, that's like obviously very relatable, I think, to a lot of people.
100%.
And that's why I think chosen family is so important, because it's who you choose to have around you.
Yeah.
And those are the things that you can control.
Yeah, absolutely.
And obviously, even with family, and this is something I talked about in the last episode in regards to boundaries.
Yeah.
The boundaries are also very important for family.
Yeah.
And
yeah, 100%.
I remember when I moved back home, obviously I'm a little bit older than the average person that lives with their parents. Maybe, who knows? I'm just guessing.
Me more.
But I'm 24. I moved back in with my parents at 23. And I remember, even though I was already Christian again, I came back with like very specific boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
So just throwing that in there as well, that if you don't have a good relationship with certain people in your family, do not be afraid to set boundaries.
Yeah.
Boundaries are for everybody.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah, they
say
really
that.
are. I kind of want to touch on chosen family real quick.
Yeah, that's where I was going.
Yeah. Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, go.
I think it's such a blessing that, you know, the Lord kind of allows us to, you know, kind of give us the discernment to know who our friends are kind of almost meant to be.
Yeah.
You know, and this is going to be a specific shout out to Clay and Megan. I love them so much.
We love you guys.
But they were there for me pretty much since day one. I showed up to our church, young adult group, you know, by myself, and Clay kind of took me in, you know, very, very quickly. And, you know, kind of just, they were always taking care of me because obviously they knew I was struggling financially, and I was working a job where I hated it. You know, I hated it so much. I was working a blue collar job, and I had a, you know, long time of working blue collar, and I was kind of over it. You know, the pay wasn't good for the amount of time I was working, like 14, 15-hour shifts, and I was only getting paid for 8. And so I was struggling pretty bad financially, and, you know, they kind of took it into their own. They kind of brought me in, you know, like they were paying for my meals, you know, after young adults. They were always inviting me over to their apartment and, you know, stuff like that. And, you know, it got to a point where, you know, I texted Clay one day, and, you know, I said sorry, you know, for being kind of like I felt like I was being a burden because they were spending so much money on me, obviously, because I didn't have money to spend. You know, but he told me that he didn't care. You know, it was more of like he just, like, he loved me as who I am as a person, and, you know, he just wanted me around. And I could say the same thing for Megan. Obviously, I'm closer to Clay, but because we're boys, you know. But you know, it's kind of grown into that brotherhood of, you know, we're always taking care of each other. You know, we're always talking about, you know, very, very deep conversation. And, you know, if we're struggling with something, we know we could reach out to each other. And, you know, those are the kinds of people that you want around you. You know, the people who are going to be there with you at your worst and at your best. And it still be the same kind of friendship.
Yeah.
And I can honestly say that about anybody in our friend group. You know, you, Clay, Megan, Jade, you know. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for me, Hannah, if you're listening, that's my girl. Me and Hannah have known each other since 2019.
Right.
And
shout out Hannah.
By all accounts, I would really genuinely classify her, and I'll tell anyone, I'm like, she's my sister.
Right.
She has always been there for me, is always the most supportive person.
Yeah.
She's always in my corner, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I'm struggling, she's struggling. Like, we take on each other's burdens.
Right.
We have been literally through thick and thin. And we also have those, like, hard moments of maybe someone does something wrong on either end, but, like, no matter what, we know that, like, the good outweighs the bad. Yeah. And we know that, like, what our connection is so much deeper than, like, surface level.
Yeah.
And I just want to throw out there too that it's possible to find those people.
Yeah.
And if anyone's listening and you're still struggling with finding even, like, really surface level friendships,
yeah.
I just want to say that there are people who, like, will go into the fire with you.
Yeah.
And
I'm so glad where you're going with this, because I was gonna kind of get into that and shout out a specific person, but continue.
But yeah, there are people who will go into the fire with you, and it's often, I want to say it's more often than not, those people are found later in life. Because I know for me, like, I've found these people in my 20s, and they aren't my elementary school friends. Or like people I grew up on the block with. Like, these are the people that, like, I had to go through some really treacherous life experience before I found these people.
Right.
So I just wanted to say that real quick too. And also to kind of tie in what I said earlier about how just because you're born into a relationship with someone, like from family, the chosen family is, again, more important because that's who you choose to go through the darkest of pits with. And if you don't have that family that you can really lean on in those moments, again, there are people out there who will go with you.
Right. And kind of with what you were saying, I talk about them a lot. Not necessarily on the podcast, but just kind of, in general, when I'm hanging out with everybody. But and if I missed anybody, I'm sorry. But my buddy Raul and I met a few years ago working together at Lululemon, and it's kind of funny because, like, at first he just kind of looked like an annoying kid, but then I realized, like, at the same time, I never knew he was Christian. And one day at work, we were working together. We were doing go backs, which for anybody who doesn't work retail, it's you're putting back the clothes that people tried on in the fitting rooms. You're just putting them back on the sales floor. And we were doing that together. And we kind of started talking about, faith and our faith and stuff like that. And that's kind of how the relationship between me and him started. But we've been friends for these past couple of years, and we don't live in the same state. He was going to school at GCU, and obviously I was living with my parents and stuff like that, kind of going in between. I had just moved back from Seattle when I met him, and he has been somebody who we have gone, literally, like you said, we've gone through the fire with each other. We're always holding each other's hands when something happens. Like he was there for me. He played a huge role, especially when I lost my job at Lululemon, because he knew that I was literally trying to climb the ranks. So the company blessed me for as long as they did, but obviously something happened, and we went our separate ways. But he was there for me, not only like as a brother, but like he took care of me financially. Like I had gone to the point where I ran out of money, and he was sending me money every week for food, because I literally wasn't working. He helped me out with a couple $100, and he would send me money every now and then obviously I was there for his breakup. His breakup was something really tough, and I had a lot to do with them not living in the same place anymore because they both graduated school. Yeah, it was this big ordeal, but he's somebody who I could always lean on, and he could always lean on me. But these are the people that you want to have around you, and kind of like how Shay said, like I didn't meet these people until I was in my 20s, including them. I've only known Shay and everybody else from our church for a couple months, not even a full year yet.
Yeah,
which is crazy, but Raul I've known for a couple years, and he's been literally the best person to have around, and I love that guy more than my own life sometimes, but that's kind of what a brotherhood should look like. So
yeah. And even I feel like that goes to show that the amount of time that you know a person doesn't really matter.
No, it never does.
Because when I feel like it's just, and again, I'm kind of, that's where it kind of is similar to dating in my mind, of when you know someone's qualities and you know almost right away that they're living out based on just how they live,
right?
Whether or not they have the qualities of something that you're looking for. And especially those friends, you know, like that chosen family, like they will go to bat for you.
Yeah.
And again, like sometimes you don't find those people until later in life, but once you find them too, I just want to say no life is easy and no relationship with anyone is easy, even if they are your best friend. And like even my girl Hannah, like we had gone maybe like 2 years without speaking to each other at some point because we really got into a really bad fight. And, you know, the Lord ended up bringing us back into each other's lives.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, like, you will have arguments, but when that quality person, like friendship or otherwise, comes into your life, sometimes that's where you need to learn to be humble and take accountability. Because it's really easy for people to leave. Like relationships can end very quickly. So it's just one of those things where it really kind of humbles you. Of like, wow, I'm so lucky to have these people in my life. And they make you want to be better. And that's just like such a huge signifier of how good of a person they are. And like, if they're encouraging you and pushing you to be better and pushing you towards Christ, like do everything you can to keep them in your corner. Yeah.
And that's kind of the whole role of, you know, spiritual community is, you know, these are the kinds of people that you want to have around you. You know, I'm not necessarily going to repeat what you just said because, you know, there's no need, you know. I think that's point blank exactly what the role that spiritual community kind of, you know, plays in your life, really. You know, if your friends and the people that you keep around you are pushing you closer to the Lord and are pushing you to be better people, you know, rather than, you know, trying to, you know, pressure you into doing things you're not supposed to do, you know, I think it's obvious and it goes without saying that's kind of the whole point of not only community, but, you know, the whole entire topic of our second episode. That's kind of what it boils down to, is how important these people are in your life and why you should keep them around you and why you should seek these spiritual connections, you know, and friendships. So yeah,
and I wanted to touch too a little bit on the generational gaps before we dive into some more, but I feel like a lot of, maybe not a lot, but some of the tension between like familial relations that I've seen comes from those gaps in faith, or those gaps again like in culture shift, like they're just raised in a different time period. And just some encouragement as well is don't let any relationship determine how you live out your own faith. Because I know that I have a friend who is really starting to just lean into the Lord and is falling more in love with him every day. And, you know, they have a parent who used to know Christ when they were a kid and slowly over time just grew further and further away. And, you know, they're really, really struggling with finding a point of unity when it comes to that belief. And I just want to say that I feel like it goes without saying, you know, just like as Christians, love everybody the same. But I feel like especially if it's a parent, even if they have different beliefs, again, that's also where boundaries come into play of, you know, maybe if you guys really just can't come to an agreement on a certain topic, just set a boundary around it and say, hey, you know, like I've noticed we really can't come to agreement. We tend to argue a lot about this topic. Maybe let's just not talk about it. And I would also say that even with those boundaries, always pray over those people. And also, even if they do have the same faith, like there's going to be a gap.
Of course.
Just because like in today's society, like going back to what we talked about a couple episodes ago, Modesty for our generation is so different from our parents and even from our grandparents. So even in faith, like certain things are going to look different. And I would just say, like, don't be afraid to set those boundaries in place. Because there's always going to be a gap, but there's always a bridge somewhere to be made for those gaps.
Yeah. And I don't even think it goes to like necessarily say like just between, you know, believers and non-believers. You know, I think that even in my situation where I come from a Catholic background and my family's still very heavily Catholic, you know, and me leaving the Catholic Church and finding myself to be in a non-denominational church, you know, at the end of the day, you know, we're all the church, you know, and but there's obviously like a lot of disagreement in certain things, and you know, it's kind of like what you were saying, like the disagreement's going to be had, but I think it's better to understand that, you know, certain things, you know, we don't talk about. You know, we respect each other for who we are. At the end of the day, we all believe in Christ. We all believe in the same Lord. Yeah. And we all choose to worship him in different ways, I guess. But at the end of the day, you know, those things kind of go without saying. I think that that's another thing that, you know, quote unquote generational gap could kind of fall into. And I feel like I wasn't learning much in the Catholic Church, and that's why I left, for the people who are curious. You know, but I can't say that it's the same, obviously, for my family, because, you know, they feel like they're growing a lot in their faith, and, you know, they're in a different church than I am, but, you know, it doesn't matter. So, yeah.
And I feel like this kind of ties into our next couple of topics, just in terms of like conflict resolution. My gosh. I can't speak. I feel like my brain is jumbled. Yes, conflict resolution. I almost said it again. And just with that, like the difference between confrontation and like going separate ways and
reconciliation.
Reconciling your differences with someone. One thing I wanted to bring up in terms of confrontation is, I feel like I can speak for both of us. We are really not confrontational people.
No, not at all.
Which can sometimes, I'm speaking for myself on this, can sometimes be a bad thing.
Right.
Because I'll tend to do the bad thing in the sense of I'll start ghosting and really distancing myself, almost to kind of like build up an invisible wall of security around myself. You know, like putting that distance almost like makes it hurt less when the time actually comes to go our separate ways. Yeah. And I just want to kind of give the advice of don't do that. Don't follow my lead on that one.
Please do not.
And I will say I am getting a lot better about it. And I think that really just does come with spending so much time with the Lord. Yeah. That you kind of just start to learn a different way of living as a whole, but also like, again, as a Christian, it almost goes without saying, like, these are your brothers and sisters in Christ. Yeah. And, you know, wow, I'm really struggling today. The more time that I spend with Jesus, the more I really start to understand that. And I just begin to grow so much love and respect for these people. Right. Even if it's, you know, like not gonna work out. Like even if we are supposed to go our separate ways, as friends or as a romantic relationship. Yeah. Just that importance again of like, they are human. They are made in Christ's image. And yeah, just like once that really clicks, it starts to make it a lot easier when it comes to confronting someone. And obviously when it's, again, like someone that you know that you're going to go separate ways with, I feel like in that instance, it can kind of be easier, just in the sense of like, you know what comes next. And that next step is like you guys going your separate ways. But I will say that there is confrontation and conflict resolution to be had in those lasting relationships.
Yeah.
And oftentimes those occur more.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, the more you grow in friendship or relationship with someone, certain things start to come up over time.
Yeah.
And especially romantic relationships, you know, like trying to pursue life as one and having that end goal of becoming one flesh. There's obviously like a lot that you need to work through. And, again, as someone who used to be very non-confrontational and is kind of working on, you know, having those firmer boundaries and not being afraid to confront someone when, you know, it's an issue that I deem worthy of being brought up.
Right.
Conflict isn't a bad thing. And I feel like that's why I was so afraid of it. And I feel like I don't want to get too psychological with it.
Right.
But just how I grew up, confrontation was always like, oh, they hate me.
Yeah.
Oh, they want nothing to do with me. They're mad at me.
Yeah. I think it's just
that kind of thing.
I think it's just the way it's perceived.
Yeah.
You know, kind of these days. I mean, we were kind of talking about it last night at the Q&A panel, because, you know, obviously the questions were asked by the students, all the youth students, you know, and, you know, one of the questions was, how do I biblically forgive somebody who I don't want to forgive or who my flesh doesn't want to forgive? And, Pastor Richard, you know, kind of nailed it right on the coffin. And, you know, and he said, you know, like, why would you not be able to forgive someone when the Lord was able to forgive us? Mm-hmm. And, you know, I feel like that's kind of what it boils down to when it comes to biblical conflict resolution is, no matter how much your flesh doesn't want to forgive somebody, at the end of the day, you know, it's something that you say all the time, like, these people are our brothers and sisters in Christ. And, you know, regardless of the situation, like, you guys don't have to continue in friendship. You don't have to continue being partners. And in some situations, you don't necessarily have to continue a relationship with a family member. But it's how you choose to do it. And, obviously it kind of boils down to, you know, the forgiveness part. And sometimes that's something that you have to pray for a very long time.
Yeah. And I was going to say that too, because I just want to put it out there that forgiveness doesn't have to precede that confrontation.
Right.
Or that conversation with someone.
Mm-hmm.
And just in speaking of like someone that I know ended a very bad relationship and really held on to that unforgiveness for a while. And that's also very normal. It's very normal for our flesh to say like, no, I don't want to forgive them. But I feel like it always comes back around.
Yeah.
You know, they always say time heals all wounds. And I feel like that's very true, especially when it comes to forgiveness as a whole.
100%. 100%.
The more time you are separated from this thing or this incident, whatever it may be, the more time you have to gain clarity over that thing. Especially if it comes to like ending a friendship or ending a relationship, you kind of start to have that clarity of like, oh, you know, we were probably both in the wrong. Or, you know, you start to have that, compassion and empathy of like, oh, you know, I'm starting to understand where they were coming from or what mindset they were in when this happened. And forgiveness starts to come a lot more naturally.
Yeah.
And also I wanted to say forgiveness is kind of like a muscle. The more you stretch it, the more you use it, the easier it becomes.
Right.
And that's just coming again from personal testimony. It really is all about practicing it. Forgiveness, I feel like, is never easy. But it becomes easier just the more you do it and the more time that you spend with Christ.
Right. And I think it kind of boils down to, I don't remember his name, but he's one of Woody's really, really good friends. And, you know, he was kind of talking about the topic a little bit of, you know, we live in a society today where forgiveness is overlooked, and forgiveness is one of the hardest things that anybody does. in today's day and age, like no matter where you are in life, how old you are, it doesn't matter. The hardest thing to do, and that we've been taught to do, is to forgive somebody. And that's kind of where we come in and play that role as Christian people, is, bringing that forgiveness back into the world, and, showing people what it really means to forgive somebody, biblically, whether they're believers or non-believers. Because if we were being very honest, if the world would probably be in a better place if we could just spare a little bit of forgiveness, to each other. And, that was something that really stuck out to me when he said that, and I was like, he's telling the truth. And that's kind of all I had to say.
Yeah, well, it reminded me too, obviously as Christians we're meant to live a life that looks like Christ, and obviously reading through the Bible you see like Jesus didn't have an easy life by any means.
No.
And oftentimes people would question him. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's also just a beautiful signifier that you're kind of doing it well.
Yeah.
If you have this great capacity for forgiveness, mm-hmm. and it comes more naturally to you than other people, and you forgive someone of a really heinous act against you, people will really start to stop and look.
Yeah.
And that's just a beautiful opportunity to say, like, peace that surpasses all understanding. Like, mm-hmm. that is a life lived well, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Extending that olive branch and that forgiveness, almost like second nature, like it's muscle memory.
Right.
That again, to me, is truly a life that's marked by Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And just on the topic of boundaries as well, I want to say too that forgiveness isn't permission for someone to continue crossing boundaries.
Absolutely.
There is a difference between forgiving and offering someone grace and kind of enabling their behavior. And what I mean by that is that grace is not always gentle, and that grace can be very firm when it comes to boundaries specifically. I feel like sometimes it's often misconstrued that being gracious is being weak, and offering that forgiveness is a sign of weakness. And I really don't think that's true. It really does take a strong character and a strong will of mind to forgive someone of something. And again, you can have that forgiveness without enabling someone. And really all that means is, again, like, stand on business, mm-hmm. when it comes to those boundaries.
Yeah.
And I said this in the last episode, but like, we're human.
Yeah.
People are going to cross our boundaries sometimes. And to me, that means, okay, maybe I need to stack up that boundary line one brick higher and really just like double down and mm-hmm. say, like, this is a boundary of mine. You've mm-hmm. already crossed it once. I forgive you. I totally forgive you. It's wiped off the slate. But if it does happen again, like, there might need to be some separation. There might need to be some distance. And if it continues to happen, like, I can't have you in my life anymore.
Yeah.
And really what it boils down to is our lives are meant to be lived for Christ. Mm-hmm. And if there is someone, because here's the thing too, like, being angry is a sin.
Right.
And if something like that is causing you to be angry, you're allowed to separate yourself from that. Mm-hmm. So you're allowed to separate from someone because of that. Mm-hmm. And I feel like sometimes for me personally, I can start to feel like that guilt of, they are just human, right. Like, everybody's going to cross a boundary. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, if someone's repeating it over and over after you tell them, hey, this is a boundary, don't do that again.
Yeah.
It also just boils down to like respect. And you have to respect someone enough to say, like, this is an area in which you need to grow, and maybe we need that separation in order for you to learn. And then also just the respect in the sense of like, you know what you deserve as a child of Christ and with an identity that's purely rooted in Jesus. Yeah, that's kind of just what I think of when I think of like enabling behavior.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I really don't have anything to say about it. I think you kind of, you said everything that, I would have said. So yeah, I'm not even gonna, I'm literally just
like
gonna repeat you.
I feel like we just like share brain cells on this podcast.
Yeah,
now.
no, absolutely. We definitely do. I think obviously like I feel like that's kind of why, like our friendship dynamic works so well because, we have a lot of the same ideas. We feel the same way about the Lord and everything else. So, I mean,
yeah,
I think that's kind of what it boils down to.
Yeah. And I just wanted to bring up again that, even healthy relationships will have conflict.
100%.
It's not an episode of me dogging on like, oh, these are bad friends.
Yeah, no.
This is a bad partner.
No, absolutely
or
not.
like bad family. Like, as humans, we just like naturally disagree on things. And it can be like really little things. Like,
yeah.
For example, as I said, my parents just came back from a month-long trip in Europe. And they traveled with my aunt and my uncle, and they were having like major beef about what temperature to set the AC. like sometimes conflict is like as little as that.
Yeah, which I think is fair.
Yeah.
Like I feel like we I mean, yeah. At the end of the day, like we all have our preferences, like our personal preferences, and
yeah.
I don't know. I feel like the AC is a personal boundary that people shouldn't cross, but that's just the way that I feel. You know? But no, yeah, I mean, I think it just comes down to, I mean, I feel the same way. I think that boundaries, should be set, and, I don't know if I could speak for you, but I know for me, like, we're both non-confrontational people, and I feel like I have a really, really hard time about setting boundaries, especially because I'm such an open book, I'm always very extroverted and, sharing a lot of the things about what I do in my life. And, at times, and always talk about how, like, I enjoy having a private life, but do I really have a private life, when I share a lot of my business? And I've kind of been better at that, just because, like, ideally I do want to live a more private life. Like, I don't necessarily want everybody in the world or everybody at church to kind of know what's necessarily, all the details to what's going on in my life, except for like the surface level stuff about like how's work, how's my day, etc. But I feel like everybody, whether you're a believer or non-believer, I think boundaries are still very, very important, and they should be set. And if you are somebody who is not afraid of conflict, I feel like you should definitely lead with that, especially when making friends or finding a partner. Boundaries should kind of be one of the first topics of conversation that you have with people. So, yeah. Yeah,
I mean, I said it last episode, when it comes to boundaries, set them early, set them often, and stick to them.
Yeah.
That's just like the most important thing going into any friendship or relationship.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of in the same boat. Like, when it comes to my friends, I like am a complete open book. Like, talk to me about anything, ask any questions you want. Like from there, that's kind of where I'm like, maybe that topic I don't want to talk about quite yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Like some boundaries you can have like later on in a friendship.
Right. Right.
But definitely set those big ones early.
Yeah, I think for me, like my biggest are like, when it comes down to like politics and stuff like that, like I definitely am not a person who is like, I'm not just going to start talking about politics straight up, ever, unless most of the time I'm joking.
Right.
But there's a lot of times where like when I'm actually being serious, like I don't like to be serious about politics at all. I think it's too much of a touchy subject, and that's probably like maybe the only one that I don't really necessarily talk about unless people.
It's one of those things where it's like there's a time and a place.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
It's not just like an open conversation.
No,
type thing.
It definitely isn't. Especially like even at work, people would try to have political conversations, and I'm just like, hey, for me that's kind of
not right now.
Yeah, like I'm not willing to find the opportunity to possibly lose my job over, something that I say or believe in. So,
yeah.
Always got to set that boundary. I think for me, politics is the biggest boundary that I set with everybody. So,
yeah. And then just to bring it back to when it comes to like I said, this episode isn't dogging on like bad friends, bad partners, whatever.
Not. Yeah.
I kind of wanted to give and I'd love to hear your input too.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe like a blueprint almost of what it would mean to actually have healthy confrontation and what it would look like to reconcile and, go through forgiveness.
Yeah. Did you want to go first?
Yeah, I can start.
Okay.
I think step number 1 is really learning to be in tune with your emotions.
Yeah.
And also like in tune with that, learn what those emotions are and like learn what triggers them and be honest about it.
Yeah.
Because I know for me personally, I tend to be one of those people that let stuff get buried and kind of just like shove more and more stuff down until I finally just like explode. Like something just random small thing finally sets me off.
Right.
And again, I'm getting a lot better about that. Hasn't happened in a very long time, but that was always like my go-to. So yeah, I think step number 1 is just being really open and honest first with yourself. And obviously step number 2, being open and honest with the person it's against. People aren't mind readers. And
right.
So again, if a boundary isn't set in place and like something happens, be open and honest with that other person. Because how else are they going to know?
Right.
That's my first part.
Yeah.
Two-step.
For me, I think the kind of the first step for, anything that comes with a confrontation and reconciliation, I think what it boils down to is a prayer.
Yeah.
You have to be very, very deep in prayer about whatever it is that might be going on. And it kind of goes to show like how important prayer is, no matter what it is, no matter how big or small your prayer is. The Lord wants you to hear him more than you probably want to hear him anyway. And the Lord wants you to say the small prayers just as much as he wants you to say the big prayers, because he already knows, but he wants to hear from you.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of really my first step in either or during both, just kind of everything as a whole. I think you have to be deep in prayer about the situation, whether you're in the wrong or they're in the wrong, or nobody's in the wrong or both are in the wrong, whatever the case may be. Prayer for me is probably the most important in these kinds of situations, and we kind of talked about it in the first episode, I believe, about, I had a really hard conversation with, somebody who was a friend to me, and, a certain situation was happening, and I had been praying over it for the past couple of months, not just a couple of days, not a couple of weeks, I was praying about the situation for a couple of months, and because it was a heavy burden that was on me, and, I spent some time talking with the Lord, and, ultimately what it boiled down to was, I'm not a confrontational person, but I had to confront the situation that was at hand. And, I wrote a very, very long message, and it was well received. So, that's kind of just what it looks like. You have to be deep in prayer no matter about what the situation may be. I think that's the most important thing for me, and it should always be step 1.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up, because that is really, really important.
Yeah.
Especially like going into it, like before what I brought up as what step 1 and 2 would be. Obviously Always
Yeah.
prayer. That's
Yeah.
really important. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I think the only reason why you didn't say is because you kind of saw it like it's such a given
Yeah.
for us,
Yeah.
and Shay tends to be the person who thinks more of like people who are non-believers, and stuff like that. But I feel like in this chance, it finally gave me the opportunity to be that person.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you even see it in today's society, like when something bad is happening, people always seem to run to the Lord without really realizing it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially people who tend to be typical anti-Christian or whatever the case may be. They're always running to the Lord, or they're asking the Lord, oh, why God, like why would God let this happen? Like, hey, like,
Right.
are you really a non-believer? But you know what I'm saying? So, and you get to see it. I mean, people talk about it all the time, like, especially when it comes to rough things. I think that's when people tend to really think about God being real and stuff like that. So, or give a prayer, say a prayer, and they'll be like, yeah, I caught myself praying and I don't even believe in God. Like,
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. I think honestly next step would be, and honestly to kind of just keep going on that, would be almost like praying through the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Because when it comes to confrontation, I've noticed in my own personal life that it can be sometimes very hard to maintain that, I guess, like posture of, like respect and, being slow to anger, being slow to speak, but being quick to listen.
Mm-hmm.
And especially, again, just like confrontation, it can be very hard.
Yeah.
And especially if maybe the other person doesn't receive it well. Maybe they're quick to be on the defense and you feel like you have to be quick on the offense and kind of really defend where you're standing. And, I feel like for me in the past, it's been really easy to kind of just want my opinion to be heard and just like make sure that, like my point is getting across, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than being really open and receptive to what the other person has to say. So just going off of obviously like what Louise said is step number 1, I think that's just also throughout the conversation. Being prayerful throughout the conversation and really just say like, God be here in this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Let me be slow to anger, slow to speak, and quick to listen. I feel like that is really huge with also the reconciliation part, which I'll get into after, but like that's what really sets up reconciliation.
Right.
Is making sure that you maintain respect and kindness and politeness throughout the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really have anything to touch on that. I think, yeah.
And I mean, from there too, like, once that conversation is over, I think first before it's over, obviously there was a confrontation to begin with. So I think it's also really important that if there's something that needs to be changed, make sure that that is like crystal clear between both parties.
Right.
And really kind of ask yourself and each other, like, what is one thing, like, if I walk away from this conversation, this one thing needs to be different. Or kind of like a takeaway, if you will. Like, what's the takeaway from this confrontation? Like, hopefully you didn't just like have this argument for no reason.
Yeah.
So it's really just important to say like, why did this argument happen? What needs to change on both parties in order for this not to happen again?
Right.
And then also, how can we hold each other accountable so that it doesn't happen again?
Right.
And again, that would look different on like what the confrontation is about. But just in the example of like, I don't know, maybe you trusted someone with a secret and they told someone and you weren't comfortable with it. Maybe the accountability thing is saying, I'm like losing my voice right now.
No, you're good.
Maybe the accountability thing would also look like, maybe I need to limit what I share with this person for a little bit until that trust is gained back. And, maybe it also means revisiting a little bit later, to have that conversation again and say, you know, this has been going really well. Are there still areas in which something might need to change?
Yeah.
And again, that all really is what builds up a good reconciliation, is like having that agreement of this is what needs to change and this is how this thing needs to look moving forward.
Right. And I think that with that, we can kind of jump into the, you know, the timing of things, you know, God's timing versus our own timeline, you know, not only with confrontation or reconciliation, but with friendships and relationships as a whole. You know, kind of just to, before I get into that, you know, kind of now that I think of it, I think that when it comes to these confrontations and reconciliations, there has to be prayer throughout, you know, before, during, and after. And majority, I wouldn't even say majority of the time, but for me personally, it tends to be majority of the time. I don't get a response from the Lord right off the bat. You know, like, I don't go home from whatever the confrontation or, you know, the situation may be. I don't go home and already know what the takeaway was.
Right.
You know, it might not even come for a couple of days, weeks, or months, and sometimes even years. You know, like you won't fully understand what the takeaway was from that situation. But being mindful in staying in prayer about the situation that is at hand, no matter how long it's been since it happened, I think is the first step into healing from the situation. And you know, just in general, you know, what we would want is obviously to know exactly what the answer was and what the takeaway was right off the bat, like right after it happened, once the conversation is over. And that's kind of what it boils down to, is, you know, that's not necessarily the timeline that the Lord's going to have for you in that specific instance.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up too, because obviously in my like blueprint, if you will, that's almost like the picture perfect version of it. Where, you know, oh my gosh, I can't talk today. Where you do come to an agreement I literally said dumb.
Yeah.
I just can't today. But obviously that was like picture perfect. You do come to an agreement, and, you know, everything is obviously not fine and dandy, but like everything was worked through.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's really not often that it happens like that. So I am glad you brought that up, because just like you said, it doesn't always come right away. That like big revelation of like, why did this happen? What do I learn from this? Like almost where do you go from here? And I just want to say too, along with that, is that in love and in friendships, try not to let a confrontation or an argument be the end all be all.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would really say, like, obviously, like those big confrontations that are the end all be all, you know, like the end of a relationship or the end of a friendship, they're for a reason. But if it's not like a make or break reason, really try to do everything in your power to keep working on it. Keep giving that person grace. Keep giving them room for growth.
Yeah.
Keep giving yourself room for growth. And really just don't give up on that person.
Right.
I feel like it's really easy in today's society, especially how big cancel culture has gotten, to really just like the flip of a dime. Yeah. Like people are just like, nope,
you turn
don't know them
way.
anymore. Don't want to talk to them anymore. I feel like it's just like way too easy now to really just get completely disconnect from someone.
Yeah.
But as Christians, that is the complete opposite of what we're called to do. We are meant to work through these things because, again, we're all brothers and sisters in Christ. And again, if it boils down to like this person is causing me to falter in my faith,
right,
or completely walk away from my faith, then obviously that's like a bigger conversation and something you really need to lean on God for.
Yeah.
But I think that that's really just like the biggest takeaway is work through it.
Yeah.
Don't just give up. Because again, relationships are hard, and especially what I've noticed, not only in like earthly relationships, but also my relationship with Jesus, is the more trials, the more tests that I go through,
right,
the more endurance I have, the more patience I have, and ultimately the more intimate that relationship is.
Yeah.
And that's the exact same with earthly. You know, like with Hannah, I'm just going to keep shouting you out, girl. But like, again, we have been through thick and thin, and even through those trials, we continue to work on our friendship,
right,
getting to know each other on really deep levels. And once you kind of get past those conflicts, it almost like rolls off your back.
yeah,
Like certain things don't bother you anymore.
No.
Because you know at the end of the day, they don't really matter as much.
right,
And again, just that level of intimacy has built a lot more. And I feel like, of course, that kind of ties in with God's timing as well.
yeah,
In the sense that I said this last episode in this series, but sometimes certain people are only meant to be in your life for certain seasons
yeah,
and to learn certain things.
yeah,
And so if you do get to that point of like, you know, we've tried all we can, I've done everything I can, but it's really just something that like can't keep going. Obviously, again, pray through it all. But I would say that that's probably a sign that God is trying to remove you from that situation. And that's why these trials continue to be brought up.
yeah, yeah. I think, you know, and kind of making the segue into, you know, I feel like we've kind of already touched on this subject a little bit, you know, especially I know we talked about it last episode, and, you know, God's timing, you know, versus our timeline of, you know, love and friendship, you know, just a romantic relationship or a friendship, family, you know, it just kind of boils down to, you know, it just really, what it comes down to for me is, you know, obviously you and I have had this conversation many times, and, you know, when it comes to, for example, people like us who are, you know, well, I won't speak for you, I'll speak for myself, but, you know, for me, who like, I'm actively seeking and not seeking a relationship, you know, I find it hard to really balance my time right now, especially with how busy work is and just how busy life is in general, that, you know, I kind of think about it. And as much as I am ready for, you know, a partner, you know, I kind of think about, you know, like, I barely have time for my friends. I barely have time for myself. And that's just a part of the plan that the Lord has for me. You know, like I really was praying so hard about this, you know, about being busy at work and, you know, being busy with my friends and having a busy schedule as far as, you know, the podcast and being a youth mentor and eventually going on to be a young adult mentor, you know, and all these things. You know, I really prayed hard about these things, and sometimes it feels hard and I definitely feel exhausted, but, you know, this is everything I ever asked the Lord for. And it may not have come at the time that I was expecting it to come. And that's kind of why I kind of feel that exhaustion every day. You know, it just kind of, that's kind of what it comes down to, is you're never going to know when the Lord is going to bless you with these things. And I think that's the beauty in it. You know, there's beauty in the mystery of what the Lord has in store for you, because as much as you think you're ready, you're never going to know how ready you are until the Lord blesses you with these things. And that goes for either relationship romantically or in friendship. You know, it's just, you know, these are things that, you know, kind of I hold very high on my prayer list, at least now, is, you know, continuing in friendship and continuing for the Lord to prepare me for whoever my future partner is. I think that, you know, there's a lot of steps that kind of go into that. And, you know, somebody who, obviously the both of us, people who are like us, who are in a sense still recovering from our past relationships. We've talked about it enough, and I don't think we have to get into it. Everybody should know by this point, if you followed along.
If you want the tea, listen to the other episodes.
Yeah, honestly, because I'm not going to say it again. But granted, these are kind of things that you have to work through in prayer and in your day-to-day actions from a Christian or a faithful lens. It just you can't really. It's just like hard to put it in words, but like, for the lack of better words, like you can't really move forward if you're not recovering from these things, and you're not going to recover from these things if you don't bring these things to the Lord.
Yeah.
And that just kind of boils down to, healing from past friendships or past relationships. Like, you're not going to be able to move forward, and you're only pushing the Lord's timeline back. And kind of really being selfish and making it your own timeline by not taking care of the situations that are at hand and giving them to the Lord for him to help you with. So,
yeah, for some reason I had the imagery of like a wound.
Right.
Because obviously, like I said earlier, time heals all wounds. Mm-hmm. But kind of just like the imagery based off what you said, it's kind of like having this gaping wound, right? Finally starting to heal a little bit, starting to scab over, and then, trying a new relationship too early. It's kind of like picking at that scab.
Yeah.
And it starts bleeding again.
Mm-hmm.
And then it starts scabbing over again. And eventually you keep picking at it to the point where scar tissue is built up over it.
Right.
And that scar tissue is like a hardened heart towards something.
Yeah.
Tell me you're studying anatomy without telling me.
No,
but that's the first thing that came to mind.
It's such a good metaphor to use.
And it also reminds me too, kind of what I said again earlier, that certain people are only meant for certain seasons. Mm-hmm.
Which can be hard to understand.
It can be. And often what I found in my own life is that it's the Lord trying to break a cycle. Mm-hmm. And like maybe you have a pattern with certain things and the Lord is trying to really snap you out of it. And, obviously if you keep, it always reminds me of, people say like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing all the time and expecting a different result.
Yeah. And
it kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah.
Of, like maybe you get into a relationship too soon, something happens, it ends, you do it again. Mm-hmm. And, maybe it's just one of those cycles where the Lord is really trying to have you remove yourself and like focus on what the actual root issue is.
Right.
And also that can go with friendships too. And
I think
that's happened with me more.
That's kind of where I see it more. Yeah. Yeah. I'm so glad that you said that. Yeah.
No, that's where I've seen it more in my personal life too. And something that I've found in myself that I've worked on a lot in past friendships that have ended is almost like a nonchalantness of not putting enough intentionality into that relationship to the point where I have taken the accountability now, but it's my fault because I let so much distance grow. Yeah. And then I sit there and I'm like, wait, why aren't they friends with me anymore? Right. And I'm like, oh, maybe it's part of my French. Maybe it's because I was being a shitty friend. Yeah. I was allowing so much distance. And, finally the Lord kind of worked with me on that and like broke that cycle. But I would say like, if you look at your life and you see there's a pattern in your relationships somewhere, take that to the Lord and say like, what are you trying to teach me from these friendships or from these relationships?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think that's kind of the season that, it's part of the season that I'm in now is like, I know I've talked to you about it. I've talked to, a couple of our friends about it, but, they're, I'm finding myself in a place where, I'm kind of I don't want to say like straying away, but you know, I'm kind of holding myself back from, you know, spending some time and you know, talking a little bit less to you know, some people. And you know, it just what it boils down to is like, you know, breaking the cycle of going into friendships a little too quick and a little too soon. You know, especially if they're not allowing um, growth in your faith. You know, I think is something that I'm very big on, especially now. Is like, if I'm being friends with somebody, and I know that they're a fellow Christian, you know, but our friendship has almost nothing to do with our faith, and we're not, you know, really having conversations about how we can help each other grow in our faith, then I kind of don't really seem to deem it as a friendship that should be had, or something needs to change, right. You know. And I think what it really uh, is it like what it is for me is like, you know, there's just certain things that, you know, people do that I don't like. I don't see it as something that's um how do I say, like, it's not something that is an action or words being said that are, you know, blessing the Lord or really blessing the friendship. Mm-hmm. You know, instead it causes uncomfortability. It causes, you know, obviously ultimately, you know, me distancing myself a little bit day by day. And you know, it just, that's kind of what it comes down to, you know. Like there's a specific reason as to why I hang out and spend more time with certain people, and that's because I obviously see that we can have conversations about what it looks like for us to help each other out and grow in our faith. And it's an easy conversation to have. It's not something that we struggle with, right? Or, you know, having those tough conversations about, like, I don't know, you know, sometimes, like, for example, with Clay, I'm allowed to have conversations with him about what I'm struggling with. And, like, you know, there's a lot of times that I bring to him that, like, you know, sometimes I don't know, I don't even know if I will have a future partner, you know. And that's a fear that I constantly have of, you know, living in singleness for the rest of my life. And you know, I can have these conversations with him and with my buddy Raul. And that's kind of part of the reason as to why we continue to be friends. You know, and it boils down to the passage, the verse, and crucify me if you want, but I don't remember what verse it is. But it's the iron sharpens iron verse. Yeah. And ultimately, if I feel like the sharpening is being done in you know, not being reciprocated, then I don't deem that friendship as useful. I don't deem it as something that I want in my life necessarily. And but obviously that comes with, you know, with prayer and you know, having constant conversation with the Lord. I know I find myself having conversation with the Lord every day about wanting to get better in my faith, about wanting to better my relationship with Him. But I'm also allowed to have these conversations with these people, and that's obviously why I'm breaking the cycle of breaking the cycle of, you know, not having those friendships. And that's the specific reason as to why I distance myself from certain people, whether it's family, you know, past partner, you know, whatever the case may be. If there's no growth, then respectfully, I don't want it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I kind of wanted to end the series with, after listening to these 3 episodes, what would you say are the top 3 things that someone can take away and think, okay, these are what I need from start to finish, before a friendship, before a relationship, during it, and after it?
As funny as it's gonna seem, like, I don't feel like I have necessarily like three things. It kind of just comes down to the one, and it's prayer. You know, like living in constant prayer, I think is the most important thing you can take away. But obviously, like, that's kind of moral of everything. But I also feel like people need to understand to have patience, and understanding that it is not our timeline, it's the Lord's timeline, and we have to learn to respect these things. Obviously, He's in control. And as much as we want to be the ones in control over everything, I know there's a lot of people out there who love to have their hands in everything. You kind of have to understand and take that step back and really realize, like, you know what? I'm not in control. It's the Lord who's in control.
Yeah.
And the only way that I can help understand more of what it is that He's doing is to live in constant prayer about these things.
Yeah. I think one of my biggest takeaways for anyone listening is, and this is obviously like through prayer, but listen to your discernment.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
That is going to carry you through finding a partner, finding friends, working through conflict, working through even easy times.
Yeah.
And if inevitably something happens, discernment is what's going to kind of get you out of that thing. And discernment is also, again, it's kind of like a cycle, right? Like that something ends, and then discernment will tell you when you're ready for something new. So I would say for anyone listening, we talked a lot about discernment in the last episode. So listen to that again. But I think discernment is like the biggest takeaway.
Yeah.
Just off these episodes, that someone can really take with them. And I think I think I'll just give two, because that's all I can really think of off the top of my head. But I would say the second one we talked a lot about, I don't remember which episode. Oh, it was our, looking through the right mirror episode. But the second biggest takeaway is your identity in Christ. Going into any friendship or relationship is going to be really difficult unless you really truly know who you are.
Right.
And as long as you're very firmly established in your identity in Christ, that's what's going to be the bedrock of any good friendship or relationship. So I think those would really be my two biggest things when it comes to relationships as a whole.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to, I guess I do have a second one, but before I do, I kind of wanted to touch on the discernment part. I think that it's very important to understand that without doubt, you can't understand discernment more. And I feel like doubt is usually deemed as something that's wrong or bad or whatever the case may be. But if you're not allowed to question certain things, you're not allowed to test your faith. So don't look at it as doubt being bad. Doubt shouldn't be something that should stray you away from your faith. It should be something that should honestly completely opposite. It should bring you closer to your faith. It should, because it'll allow you to start questioning and start talking to the Lord more, where the Lord is going to bless you with discernment or more discernment on these things. You're going to start understanding the dynamic of the relationship between you and the Lord. And I honestly forgot the second point that I was going to give. I think another thing that should be a big takeaway from this mini series is you should self-analyze yourself.
Oh yeah.
I think that not only, it kind of falls into the identity in your identity in Christ, but you should be able to analyze who you are as a person, and you should analyze who you are as a person before you jump into anything, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a relationship, or whether you're jumping into a confrontation, whatever the case may be. You should always analyze yourself first. I feel like you bringing up the episode of we should be able to look at ourselves in the mirror first before anything. And really study ourselves to understand ourselves more before anything happens.
Yeah, totally. I agree. Well, thank you everybody for listening along with season 1.
Yeah.
I just want to say I'm actually just blown away with how many views and impressions and just how much support we've had.
The interactions
over the past. It's only been 2 months.
Yeah.
So just from the bottom of my heart, just the biggest thank you to everyone who, every week they look forward to an episode. And also a big thank you to the people sending the texts and the messages after listening and just showing all the love.
Which I do want to say, nobody is hitting me up. Everybody is going to you. So where do I come into this? Why are people not reaching out to me?
I can't speak on that. However, thanks everybody for messaging me. No, but truly, it really is just amazing to see all the support.
No, absolutely.
And even if I am the only person to get a message, I always share it with Luis.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was definitely a joke. I mean, feel free to text me too.
Hit up his phone, please.
Yeah, but it's more so I mean, regardless of the situation, I was just trying to make a joke. And but no, seriously, thank you guys so much. I feel like everybody who feels comfortable talking to us about the podcast always has very, very nice words to say. And I feel like there has been so much growth, not only in our friendship, but just in our faith in the Lord, and who we are as Christians. I think there's a lot that's been learned. I mean, in the past 2 months, where we started off in this podcast. Yeah. I feel like we're completely different people. Yeah. And not in the sense of we're different, we have different personalities, but our faith has grown so much, and the maturity in our faith has also grown to the point where we're not questioning the same questions. We see things in a different point of view. And I think it also kind of has to do with just the fact that we analyzed ourselves, throughout these episodes. And obviously we listen to these episodes and, listening back and really understanding, we learned from ourselves. Yeah. Which is the craziest thing ever. Yeah. But yeah, thank you guys so much for the support, and, continue to share the podcast with anybody that you feel might like it, even if you feel like they might not like it. Something, a blessing is a blessing, and I think we as Christians should learn to take a blessing, no matter how big or how small, and treat it the same way. So, yeah. Yeah.
And obviously we're going to be on our little break, but again, we'll be active on our Instagram. Mm-hmm. And I truly would just love to hear from you guys on what you'd want from season 2. So yes, we'll try and put a Q&A up on our story, and maybe even make a post about it. But I just would really love to hear what you guys really want to hear from us.
Yeah. So. And I would love a little bit more interaction.
Yeah, we'll get there.
I would love a little bit more interaction from everybody. Do not forget to follow us on Instagram at the Table Pod. Subscribe to us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, wherever it is that you're listening. Just pop an emoji in the comments, whatever the case may be. Just anything is a benefit.
If you've listened this far, put a confetti emoji to celebrate the wrap of season 1.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is the wrap. Awesome. We will see you guys in season 2.
Bye.
Bye.